Paul and Deputy John Paul Phelan.
Thank you, Les Concorla. In my brief few minutes, I too want to join with previous speakers in welcoming the bill and welcoming the fact that we're going to have a referendum to recognise the rights of children distinctly in our constitution. I want to commend Minister Fitzgerald and the officials in her office and her department who have brought this particular referendum to the position where we're now discussing the legislation to allow it to take place. It was an expressed part of the programme for government, and it is important that it is now going to come to fruition. And I too want to join the previous speaker in hoping that we would have a full and frank discussion of the issues over the course of the next few weeks during the campaign before the referendum date itself. It is important, in light of what we have learned in the last number of years about the neglect of children on a whole scale rate over many years by the state and different organisations that were charged by the state to look after children, that we would acknowledge the rights of children distinctly within the Constitution. And the new Article 42A, I want to really commend the Minister and her officials for the wording of it. There were some concerns expressed prior to publication as to the difficulty of ensuring that the wording wouldn't be in any way controversial, and I have to say that I fully support the wording as proposed, and I think it ensures that the rights of children will be fully protected going forward in our Constitution into the future. And I think that is wholly appropriate, particularly in light, as I said earlier, of the scandalous abuse of children that has occurred in this country, sadly, over many, many years. And it is an attempt, as Deputy Harris pointed out, by the state to grapple and to come to terms with the scale of that particular abuse. It's not before time, but it is certainly very important that it's being introduced at this particular juncture. I also want to commend and I suppose emphasise the wording in the proposed new Article 42A, which makes particular reference to exceptional circumstances which can arise from time to time. Thankfully for most families and in most family situations, those situations don't arise. But those exceptional circumstances do come to the fore in a minority of cases. I believe it's a fundamental role of any legislator, any member of Parliament, to legislate for the future, and certainly children and the rights of children have to be central to that. I have to say, personally speaking, I'm one of the fortunate ones in that I grew up in a very happy family background, but not every child has that particular opportunity, and it is wholly right that the offices and agencies of the state would be in a position to intervene in family situations where those protections are not afforded to children. And that's why I'm fully supportive of this particular legislation and this particular referendum. I believe that it is the duty, I suppose, of every member of the Oireachtas to ensure that the children of Ireland, both currently and into the future, would enjoy those freedoms and those protections as outlined by the terms of this particular amendment. I think it is of exceptional importance to turning a new leaf, making a new chapter in the history of our country, that we would acknowledge some of the scandalous atrocities that have been carried out on children in the past in this country, and that we would now, at this juncture, insert into our Constitution express provision for the benefit and protection of children into the future. Not every child is in the fortunate position of growing up in a happy family background. And I welcome the publication by the Minister of the new adoption laws, which came subsequent to the publication of the legislation with regard to this particular referendum, which seeks to remove some of the inequalities in existing adoption legislation, whereby children of potentially married parents who are in long-term foster care in some cases, that they would be in a position to be adopted by their foster parents. I think that is a positive expression by the state of the gratitude to the foster families. And there are many of them around the country who have taken children from difficult backgrounds into their homes, into their lives over many, many years, and provided them with a proper upbringing, that those foster families' roles would be acknowledged and enhanced into the future, is something that is certainly a very positive development, and it's contained in the adoption legislation, which, as I said, is published subsequent to the publication of the referendum legislation. So I want to finish up by fully supporting the legislation as proposed and reaffirming my own support for the referendum and the need, even at this stage, and particularly at this stage, to acknowledge within our constitutional framework the rights of children. Constitutions tend not to be very prescriptive documents. They list rights that citizens have, and I think it is wholly appropriate that we would list and resolve ourselves as a nation to protect the rights of children into the future, and that's why I fully support this legislation.